Hello, my name is Brittany Aubain, once again filling in for Gary Axelbank, and welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is BronxNet's program where we talk to reporters, writers, editors, and all sorts of different artists, mostly focused here in the Bronx, to see what has the Bronx buzzing. In our second segment, we'll be joined by publisher and editor Stephanie Young to discuss Vellum magazine's latest issue. To start off the show, we take a look at some of the investigative work done by CUNY Lehman's investigative team on the fight to clean up toxic brownfields here in the Bronx. Joining us to discuss the article written about this is Professor Eileen Markey and student journalist Aminata Gueye and Ryan Pullido. Hi, guys, welcome.
Hello. Thank
Hi,
you for having us.
thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us. So, to start off, Professor Markey, in August of 2022, you conducted research with the Lehman College journalism students on the prevalence of toxic brownfield sites in the Bronx. Why did you decide to do this research with the students?
Well, this seems like a really important issue and, frankly, a great way to teach journalism. I try to every semester have as much hands on journalism work in my classes as possible. They're all really practical classes. And in this particular class, this reporting to class, I always build it around an investigative project. So the students really learn how to be the deep digging, serious investigative reporters that absolutely we need in the country. And really the only way, or I think the best way to learn that is by doing it. So in that class, students read investigative journalism. We kind of learn about best practices from other working journalists, but then we're always working on a big project ourselves. And so this particular project, looking at the prevalence of contamination in neighborhoods in the Bronx, I thought would, first of all, it has like incredible important social value, but also in terms of me as a teacher, it was a way to show students, okay, here's how you work with public information. Here's how we'll use these different modalities that reporters need to be able to use. Everything from working with public information, interviewing people on the street, to working with video, to doing data visualization, to understanding who in politics is responsible for making decisions. It was an investigation that I knew had the resources necessary for the students to learn what I want them to learn in the class. And that lent itself to all of the different modes that a multimedia investigative journalist needs to be able to master.
Absolutely. Like you said, it's more about doing than learning. And I think that's really an effective way to teach the students. And not only are they doing journalism, but then they're also learning about, the area that they're in, which of course just, broadens their knowledge and overall makes them better journalists. So if you can you elaborate a little bit on what you found in this research study?
Yeah, well, maybe Ryan or Aminata can tell us what
Mhm.
they find.
You can go.
So in this investigation, my classmates and I, we went through the DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation's website, and there's various public records there that detail the different toxic chemicals found in more than 50 sites throughout not only the Bronx, but all 5 boroughs of New York. And we found the different responsible parties for the sites. We looked into the site health assessment made by the DEC and various experts as well. And we moved on to organizing that data.
Ryan, can you tell me a little bit about when you saw the outcomes and you saw the data? Can you tell me a little bit about what your reaction was?
Honestly, we were surprised at the amount of harmful contaminants that were hidden beneath the ground. There was a lot that was basically that we saw. There was various amounts of contaminants that were hidden beneath the ground, and the various amounts of locations that were throughout, not just the Bronx, but throughout all of New York, Manhattan, Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island, and the Bronx.
Yeah, to piggyback off of that, you mentioned that there were 53 locations in the Bronx specifically that are at risk to humans where are these sites located and just how at risk are these neighborhoods?
They were located in various sites of the Bronx. There were some in the South Bronx, and most of them were found in the South Bronx. Actually, there's also in various parts of the Bronx that were found as well. But they are very harmful in the case that it can cause a lot of disease. It can cause a lot of harm for a human. Some of them are
Mhm.
carcinogens. It can cause cancer. Some of them can cause liver problems, and some of them can cause like just headaches and dizziness. But
Mhm.
the various illnesses that you can get from them are a variety.
Mhm.
And thinking about the fact that obviously, like people's first question, right, would be like, "Is there one of these near me?"
Right.
We leaned on the skills that the students had from other classes, from other journalism classes at Lehman, and made really like the heart of the project is a map, right? Is data visualization is a map. So Aminata can talk a little bit about how she decided to do that and how she, what that map shows.
Yes, so as soon as we saw that there were over 50 sites, I thought it would be helpful to have data visualization because it would help people locate the sites very easily. And I knew that Data Wrapper is an interactive software to do that kind of mapping. So on Data Wrapper, we were able to put the site location, the various chemicals that were there, the the responsible party of the location and the address so people would be able to see what's going on in their neighborhood.
That's amazing. And Aminata, can you just elaborate a little bit more on what you learned? What kind of skills did you garner from creating the map?
Through using the data wrapper map, I was able to synthesize information easily. I had to learn how to choose what would be the most relevant information for people to see once they go on our article and know what information they are going to be looking for. So just trying to choose the most relevant pieces of information was very important, and organizing all of our data. And also, this whole project was like a very multimedia based process. So even just from the map, we had to incorporate things like photography and interviews, and it was just a wide set of skills that we had to implement.
And that's awesome. And I'm sure you learned a ton, and I'm sure you're going to take that with you in your career. So, Ryan, you reported on the DEC sites. What did you learn from that experience, and how did it add to the investigation?
What I learned from that experience is that journalism is a very long and tedious process. Um, you have to dig deep into it, and you have to be brave enough to actually go into the countless documents over there. Because for us, we had to cycle through 1,000 pages documents day in and day out, and we had to like make sure that the information that we are getting are accurate, and that the information that we're sending out to the public is accurate and true. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Professor Markey, what did you take away from the students as a whole from this investigation? And can we expect to hear about more investigations in the future?
Yeah, definitely. The thing that made me happiest in this semester was seeing some of the students really get that bug of investigative journalism. Where I mean, Ryan's honest when he says it's tedious, right? Like real journalism, real investigative work is hard. It's slow. It takes time. It takes perseverance and patience. That's one of the reasons we don't see enough of it in much of media. It's this really kind of rare skill and practice. But what made me most delighted as a reporter and as a reporter who learned to do journalism in this form when I was these guys' age is to see some of them get that bug. Right, to come into class and say, "You wouldn't believe what I found," or "I was reading page 300 of this document and I found this connection to that," and to see them with a sense of outrage and also with an increasing sense of agency and power. Um, a lot of the times in class, people talked about how angry they were, that this is awful, and they want to figure out who's accountable. That there's a scandal that there can be all these locations in our neighborhoods where people are being exposed to something harmful, and the state is aware of it, but the wheels of government move so slowly that year after year after year, despite the fact that these sites are all under orders to be remediated, right? And despite the fact that there is numerous pages of documentation about how dangerous they are, and despite the fact that there's every intention on the part of the DEC to clean them up, yet it still doesn't happen, right? Because bureaucracy moves slowly, because there's not always enough funding to get it done, because there's like arguments around the edges of which method should be used to clean up the sites. And meanwhile, people are exposed to dangerous chemicals. Um, in order to be a journalist, you need to be more than a little bit angry. And so, honestly, as a professor and as a journalist, the most gratifying thing was to see the students reaching that combination of angry and methodical, right?
Hmm.
Angry at something being wrong and methodical enough to get all of their facts in a row in order to be able to produce a valuable piece of journalism that is not just them shouting, that is not just people sharing opinion, but rather is giving the chapter and verse of the
Hmm.
facts of what's wrong. And then learning the skills in order to decide how to communicate that the most effectively. So this package is an article, it's an 8-minute video, it's an interactive map, and it's a sidebar article that traces that two other students worked on, that traces the attempts to regulate the most prevalently found chemical and the influence of the chemical industry that prevented it from being regulated. So to me, it was a really valuable class because the students produced an important work of journalism that's going to be helpful and hopefully lead to some solutions, right? Like lead to people in these neighborhoods being able to have the facts they need to push for intervention. It was useful because it got some of the students got that bug of, I really want to find out what the next fact is, and I'm going to keep digging and keep pushing myself, even when you're sort of reaching to understand things you don't yet understand, right?
Hmm.
Journalism is this amazing confidence builder in that way. Like you can do hard things, and you can get stronger, and suddenly you're actually conversant in talking about the health impacts of petrochloride, like something you didn't know the words to before. Um, so in that way, I'm like very gratified. Yes, I will continue running my classes as workshops, 100% continue running this particular class as this multimedia investigative journalism project, where each semester we'll figure out another topic that that needs the brilliance, the dedication, the knowledge, and the perspective and skill of Lehman College students. The thing that makes me most proud is that all of this work is done by students, the majority of whom are from the Bronx, right? Or if they're not from the Bronx, they're from other parts of New York City, um, who who have tremendous expertise and skill in understanding their neighborhoods. And then what we do in my class is just learn these other ways of these other parts of skills in order to be able to tell the stories that are necessary for our neighborhoods to be able to thrive.
Absolutely. Professor Markey, I'd like to thank you and your student journalists, Aminata Gueye and Ryan Pullido, for sharing the findings of your investigation, truly making a difference here in the Bronx. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Stephanie Young to discuss the latest issue of Vellum magazine. We'll be right back.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, mijo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Thank you so much.
Fostering a pet for a friend or neighbor can keep families together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Man, it's lonely. Like, going through life lonely.
There is the therapeutic aspect of music, just expressing how you feel. I'm going to talk to Howie about his feelings, make it into a song.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff. like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Feel the beat of nature at a park or forest near you. Find a forest and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org.
You can talk to me if you're feeling sad.
Thanks for hearing me out, bro.
Whenever you need to talk, I'm here, okay?
Hey, boss. Okay?
I said I'm fine.
Put me to bed, see you in the morning. With the frosted Superman, but it wasn't on it. And we lost it.
You can talk to me.
It's been really, really hard for me.
Welcome back to the Bronx Buzz. Now joining us is publisher and editor Stephanie Young to discuss the latest issue of Vellum magazine. Stephanie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So to start off, for those who don't know, can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, I'm a publisher, editor, curator of Vellum magazine, and what I mainly do is I publish a magazine about young emerging artists, and I also curate shows, with a lot of the artists that I feature in the magazine.
Awesome. So, for once again for the audience who may not know, can you describe in detail Vellum magazine? You describe it as art scene for the masses. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people view art as kind of like this elitist, very closed secret society type of thing. And I wanted to take that away, demystify art, because I come from a music background. So, a little later on in my career, I stopped doing music and then I started doing Vellum. So I wanted to, have the same type of mass appeal that music has, but with artists.
That's awesome. Can you tell me a little bit about issue number 27?
Yeah, issue 27 just came out, and again, I'm a curator, so it actually is almost a catalog of a show I just did at Bronx River Art Center called Keep It in Fiction. So I catalog that, install shots, and I also have pictures of each of the pieces that were in the exhibition.
That's awesome. So what piqued your interest and inspired you to choose this particular show for this issue?
Well, I do a lot of curatorial projects in the magazine. So I wanted to, because this was a big show for us, for Vellum artists. So I wanted to document it. So that's pretty much how why I wanted to feature the show I just did at BRAC.
Tell me a little bit about, when you went to the show, what was the atmosphere like? What was the environment like?
Well, I was the curator of the show, so it was actually fabulous. It's a beautiful space and great staff there. So it was a great win-win situation for me and all the artists.
That's awesome. So Vellum's articles are written in a non-critical format that focuses on the artist's studio practice. For our audience, can you elaborate a little bit more on what that means?
Well, a lot of art writing, or they call it art criticism, is breaking down with using art theories to basically talk about a person's art. I was more interested in just focusing on the process of the artist and how they create their work. So, I do critiquing also, but, I do both.
Yeah, awesome. And I think that's a great way to, build up artists, build up their work, where, a lot of times you focus more on the feeling that you get and not necessarily the technical skills. So it's nice to have a balance of both. That's really great. And Vellum is geared toward not only art connoisseurs, but everyday people who, may not be exposed to art. So can you tell me, how do you gear your magazine towards both audiences without alienating one specific audience, whether it's too much content or a lack thereof?
Well, because I come from a journalistic background, I kind of write my articles more informative opposed to critiquing. Even though as I've gone on this journey, I've been doing Vellum since 2005.
Mhm.
I do more, because I learn more and more about the art. So I do more critiquing now, but, a lot of interviews I do and that type of thing.
That's great. So, why do you feel like it's important to expose everyday people to contemporary art?
Because I think art is an important part of our culture. And I think it really, once people get into art, it can enrich their lives, beyond, you know, anything.
Mhm. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about your process when you're writing an issue, what
Mhm.
what goes into it from the brainstorming concept all the way to, getting the issue out?
Well, in the art world, a lot of times it's a lot of word of mouth. Someone might say, "Oh, this a friend of mine's a really good artist," or you go to open studios. They have open studios where artists have their studios probably once or twice a year in various neighborhoods and stuff like that. So, I find artists, everywhere. And I also have open calls. So that means I'll have a call in like NIFA classified if I'm looking for a specific type of work or whatever.
Mhm. So, within the 27 issues and, you were discussing your open calls, tell me a little bit about some pieces of work that have stood out to you.
Oh, there's so many pieces that stand out to me. It's hard just to pick one.
Mhm.
I actually, I really, I wouldn't want to do that. I mean, if you want to talk about the artist that's on the current cover,
Mhm.
Marcy Braffman, that's actually a GIF, meaning she created a drawing digitally and then, on a digital format, and then she made it a GIF, meaning, it moved a little, and then she sells it as an NFT. But she's originally a painter, and her process is a lot about popular culture and that type of thing.
That's interesting. If you have an idea, can you tell me a little bit about the reception that you get back from your readers?
Yeah, I mean, people are just so happy that someone is covering the arts kind of in a DIY underground way. Again, art, people see art and it does tend to be sometimes a little elitist or
Mhm.
there's like a small society. So I wanted to break away from that. So yeah, people love it because it's more accessible, I think.
Absolutely. And on the topic of, accessibility, what kind of impact do you think art and contemporary art has on people?
I just think that, art enriches your life beyond belief because it's all about imagination and breaking boundaries and looking past what situation you might be in or, so I think it's a great thing that we have art and we need to have more art in schools and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Art in schools is huge. We need to bring that back between performing arts, visual arts. I think that's what's really going to help give these children a well-rounded curriculum.
Definitely.
And on the topic of, bringing out the arts, do you have any open calls or anything coming up?
Yeah. Every issue I do have an open call, a curatorial project that I do in the magazine, and people could find that on NIFA classified. That'll happen in about a month or so. I'll put the call out.
Awesome. And when you do these open calls, what exactly do you look for if there's any criteria?
Well, if I have a theme, which I normally do, then artists who feel they're appropriate for the theme answer the call. And basically, I look for, something unique, something maybe I haven't seen before.
Mhm. That's awesome. So, in the coming issues of Vellum, what are your hopes? Whether it's a hope for the reader, a hope for you, what does that look like?
I just want to really get out there, like I have been. We basically have a lot of exposure at art fairs and the different shows that I curate. So I'll be doing Volta, New York coming up. So that's something that, if people are interested in going to a great art fair, they could find us there, as well as the magazine. Not just me.
That's great. So as you continue to travel throughout New York, looking at different art pieces, do you ever see that there's like a common theme between every area or?
Not really. I mean, because there are themes in art that, people grab onto, like a lot of the LGBTQ issues are really big in art right now, or climate, that type of thing. More so generally, not so much neighborhood by neighborhood. I see trends.
Okay. And even though you do travel a lot in person, do you think that social media has also helped people put their art out there and maybe declassify it a little bit?
Definitely. I think, like 5 years ago, you would never really sell art online, because people want to see it in person. Now I've actually sold work online. And to me, that's, it's amazing. It's just progress. It's just the way our society is moving.
Yeah, for sure. And as an artist yourself, what are your hopes to kind of continue with the artwork aside from the magazine?
My thing with Vellum has always been I really want to find the best unknown underground artists out there. So
Mhm.
and I will continue that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you say underground, can you explain a little bit for our audience?
Sure. Underground means they don't have formal gallery representation, or they haven't been as, recognized as maybe they should have been, or,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of politics too that go along with art. It's not just about being a good artist. So.
Yeah, gallery representation, that's actually really interesting. Can you speak a little bit on that for our viewers?
I really can't, because it's just, a lot of representation is, like a gallerist, galleries, preference, what they like, what their collectors like.
Mhm.
So that's pretty much all I could speak on that.
Right, so there's no, like, particular way of getting into it. It's kinda like you get in kinda thing?
If they like your work, that's how you
Yeah.
get in, that's kind of like, the only way. There's really no other criteria. It's just, to me, it's just someone's personal preference, what they like and what their collectors are interested in.
That's understandable as art is subjective, so, it does make sense
It
in a way.
is.
But how can people stay in touch with alum?
Well, you could find, I'm on social media, Instagram, at Vellum Mag. You could find me, and you could find my website, vellumartine.com, and you could follow me there.
I'd like to thank Stephanie Young for joining us on today's program, as well as Professor Markey and her students for the investigative work they've done for the Bronx, as well as the audience for watching. And guess what? That's right, we'll be back next week. Stay safe.